Thank you and welcome. I would like to express my gratitude to David and Golru for giving this opportunity to me to use the resource of Harvard University and also to share my research with you. The present study consists of two sections, abstract portraiture and animated inscription. The use of abstract portraiture and animated inscription in Islamic buildings started in the 10th century and continued up to end of the Ilkhanid period in the 14th century. In this research, many buildings which are mostly religious with abstract portraiture and animated inscription have been studied. In my research, I have tried to understand the meanings behind the inscriptions in those buildings. Also, I have done research on the patrons and users who funded these buildings to figure out the reasons for using them. All monuments in this study, except for the Friday Mosque of Nain, are located in the medieval province of Khorasan and Umes in the northeastern Greater Iran. The idea of this research started when I first saw this image on the main Ivan of the Friday Mosque of Faryumet. Quran is silent about the aesthetics of painting and sculpture. However, based on an interpretation of some of Quran's verse, many Muslims are showing reluctance to use of figural representation. One of the Quranic statements which has been interpreted in a way which prohibits using figural representation in art and architecture is God is the only creator. Attitude manifested itself in an immediate veto in the case of religious art and architecture. Even now, some Muslims avoid saying they're praying in a room which has a picture or a statue. Although in the secular art in Islamic lands such representation have flourished. Therefore, non-figural ornaments were used in religious monuments. Geometric ornaments was the most common way in religious architecture. The other was vegetal elements that most of them have not natural vegetation. The third them was writing. Quranic verse, hadiths, and patron's inscription were the topics of writing. All these ornaments were worked by many methods in religious architecture. Human, animals, or birds are the rarest ornaments in the religious architecture in Islamic lands, and just a few samples exist, such as the Great Mosque of Diyarbakir, possibly in 12th century, and main mosque in the ancient city of Melatiya that are in Anatolia, or Ilkhanid tile in Masjid Ali in Ghohrud in Iran, and luster tile in shrine complex of Abdus Samad in Natanz in the Ilkhanid era that fanatics have damaged the face of birds because of figural representation. These limited instances clearly represent animals, birds, and even human in religious architecture. They are fundamentally different from studied abstract portraiture pointed out in the present study. I will now introduce some typical religious buildings that have abstract portraitures from different time periods and then try to draw some conclusion from the data. Nishabur was an important metropolis in the Islamic era until it was destroyed in the 13th century. There are lots of abstract portraiture in Nishabur's monuments, but what made Nishabur important in my research was the use of abstract portraiture in religious architecture at two sites which are known as Tape Madrese and Tape Sabzpushan. Dado panels were located in an Ivan. Dado panels were located in an Ivan. This Ivan may have been part of private house, but the presence of mihrab, suggests it could have also functioned as a small neighborhood mosque. We can see abstract portraiture at the center of four-lobed medallion as well as its surroundings. In these instances, faces are recognizable. But before that, I want to explain my definition of face or abstract face. Faces both in profile and full face format should have two characteristics. First, position of the eye in the profile or eye in full face should be correct. Second, they should have at least another part of the face, such as nose, ear, lip, or eyebrows. Shir Kabir Mazar at the site known Mashhad Mesriyan. Today, the area is located in Dehestan in western Turkmenistan. Type of inscription in Shir Kabir is Quranic. The form and decoration of Shir Kabir attributed to the 10th century because of its similarities to a congregational mosque of Nain and Dedu of Sabzpushan. Also, there is a head of bird in stucco ornaments of the mihrab. The city of Nain is now located in the center of Iran in Isfahan province. Types of inscription in congregational mosque of Nain are Quranic verse and payas. The payas inscriptions contain two phrases. These sentences, which are attributed to Shia, but Sunni people also use them. Thus, we cannot identify the tendency of patrons of the congregational mosque of Nain. In the arch in front of the mihrab are some abstract portraiture, that some of them are smiling. They are not particular portraiture and they cannot be identified as a human or animals, as you see. They are just creature. As we saw in Nishabur, this characteristic will be repeated in all monuments in this study. This abstract portraiture could be detected from the point of view of a person looking at the mihrab's arch, both while approaching it and also when leaving it. This means if you look at the same area on your way back, you would see a different abstract portraiture. Bastam is a small town in the medieval Iranian province of Qumes. Now is the part of Semnan province. Bayazid, early Muslim famous mystic of Iran, known as Prince of the Mystics, he lived in the 9th century, and the architectural complex built around Bayazid tomb. The shrine complex of Bayazid Bastami has been continually changed and repaired from the 10th century until the late Qajar era. The most interesting part of the structure as it stands today dates from the Ilkhanid period. First monument is Bayazid Mosque. The stucco decoration of the dome chamber was entirely redecorated by Hossein ibn Abi Talib Damghani, assisted by his son at 1299 in the Ilkhanid time. He called himself in different title in inscriptions, but he also called himself geometer or muhandis in the stucco work of the mihrab. That maybe it is the first use of this title in Islamic architecture. There are lots of abstract portraiture, and most of them are unique. However, there are some abstract portraitures that are repeating. Like in Nain, many of the abstract portraitures are smiling. In some of them, you can even detect another abstract portraiture if you look at them from a different angle. Also, like in Nain and Nishabur, we cannot recognize what type of animal they are. They are just creatures. All of them are full face, and I have not found any abstract portraiture to be in profile. However, I think there is a high possibility to find more abstract portraitures, potentially in profile, since some stucco works are now covered behind the glass in front of mihrab and also the minbar. We can see bear's head. Such motifs were common in the architectural ornaments of Nishapur and Khosrowshir. Second part is an isolated cell or some of Bayazid. It appears that he spent much of his life as a recluse in his home, the mosque, and isolated cell or some in Bastam. Hossein and his son, who redecorated Bayazid Mosque, did similar work in 3002 in the some of Bayazid and at the same time in the Masjid Jame. Most of the surfaces of these rooms are covered by stucco with a variety of different abstract portraitures. Some of abstract portraitures of Some seem a little more complicated compared to those in other places. Once again, we have bear's head and abstract portraiture that are smiling or frowning. Most of the times, it is important to note that in stucco, in these buildings, a full face is not represented. For instance, one eye may be missing or a full face is only present in the middle of a multiple partial face figures. However, it is interesting that in Some of Bayazid, there are significantly more full face figures comparing to partial face figures. The other monuments in Bastam is Masjid Jame Bastam that is located 75 meters south of Bayazid Shrine complex, which dates from the 10th century. The redecoration of stucco ornaments of this mosque was done again by Hossein and his son in 1302 in the Ilkhanid period. There is the same story about motifs, but the number of birds is more than the other places of Bastam. I will talk about the form of inscription in Bastam in part of animated inscription, but the meaning of inscriptions do not directly mention either Sunni or Shia. The phrase of Ali ibn Abi Talib Waliullah, or Ali is the friend of God, can be seen in the mihrab of Bayazid Mosque, which means stucco carver or his patronage have a tendency to Shia. But I think the style of this inscription and the motifs that was used between letters seem completely different in comparison with other inscription of the shrine complex, and it refers to later period. It seems the patrons and architect of these ornaments have a tendency towards Sufism, and we cannot understand their religious orientation towards Shia or Sunni. Semnan is a city in the medieval Iranian province of Umes and now is in Semnan province. Minaret, which is the oldest part of mosque, was built in 420 by Abu Harb Bakhtiyari as a sign of his independency of him before attacking of Mas'ud Ghaznavi. Over the doorway of the dome in the Ivan are two inscriptions. One of them is stucco and attributed to the Ilkhanid era. The ornament of the inscription band has bear's head and other creatures, but they are not smiling, and the quality of stucco work in comparison with Bastam is lower. Meaning of inscription is about the distribution of water of Qanat. The inscription has incomplete text that possibly related to the Sufi Sheikh Alauddoleh Semnani, a famous mystic of the Ilkhanid period, who came from a local family of landlords. We know he built or restored some monuments such as his Khanegah and Eastern Shabestan of Friday Mosque of Semnan. Also, the distribution of water of Semnan attributed to Sheikh Alauddoleh in the Ilkhanid period. And this Ilkhanid stucco is also about this undertaking. Therefore, more possibly, this inscription related to great Sufi of Semnan at that time. In the northeast of Bastam is a large village called Qal'e No, which contains the mausoleum of the 11th century Sufi Sheikh Abdul Hassan Kharaqani. Except for the stucco mihrab, other parts of the mausoleum seem new. The mihrab is attributed to Ilkhanid era, and the abstract portraiture of it is similar to the Masjid Jame Bastam. Faryumad is located near the border between Khorasan and Qumes, and now is the part of Semnan province. This mosque has two Ivans. The mihrab in the main Ivan is signed by Ali ibn Abul Hassan ibn Mahmud Shahristani. To introduce the Faryumad Mosque, please watch this 2-minute video. Historic documents shows the patron of some construction in the city of Faryumad is the Wazir of the Ilkhanid period. Alauddin Muhammad Faryumadi, he was appointed in 1328 as Wazir in the Ilkhanid court and was killed in 1342 by the Sarbedars. Also the phrase of Dastur al-Khafeqin, Sultan possibly Wuzara, here, Dasturul Khafeqin and Sultanul possibly Wuzara can be seen in the main Ivan. In the language of politics, the term Dastur referred to ministers at that time. Furthermore, most of the time, the name of patron is located in the top of the arch, and we can see the first part of the name of Alauddin at the top of the main Ivan. Therefore, Wazir Alauddin Muhammad Faryumadi possibly was the patron of the Ilkhanid ornaments of Faryumad Mosque between 1328 to 1342. The ornaments of mosque generally are very distinguished and beautiful, and a lot of time and skill has been spent for its construction, but unfortunately largely damaged. The largest pictures of abstract portraiture examined here is on the Ivan of Friday Mosque of Faryumad, which are one pair of the images of each side of wall of the mihrab of the Ivan. Although the picture is almost at the 7-meter height and it is not close to our vision. At first it looks similar to a human because of the form of its nose. However, one cannot certainly state it, and it is only permissible to Persium that it is similar to an abstract shape. Similar to the Bayazid complex shrine at Bastam, there are lots of abstract portraitures in decoration of Faryumad Mosque. Some of them have been created in an iterative manner in appoints. They could be observed in most of the remaining decoration of the mosque. The interesting point here is that the Ivan is completely covered with the verses from Al-Mulk Surah. These verses, which are among the few ones directly pointing out to creation of birds, is not common in the mosque. Based on my definition of the face, there are lots of abstract portraiture in the buildings we just examined. Here I refer to the more in transparency because some of the researchers could not recognize this. One should add that most of them have common characteristics that make us regard them as belonging to one single style and obtain a model of them. 1. These faces are in abstract form and most of them emerge in floral decorative. 2. They all have a face and a head, but a body is lacking in their design. 3. Some of them are smiling in some cases, especially when worked out on a dome or arch. They seem to be in the shape of abstract portraiture in reverse too. 4. Their gender and the face that which type of animal or bird they belonging is not pointed out. They are just creatures. Of the 9 buildings with abstract portraiture drawing, 5 of them were somehow directly associated with the Sufi tradition, and the 5 buildings all belong to the Ilkhanid period. I would like to argue that the use of abstract portraiture style in the Ilkhanid period is related to Sufi concepts and were used in their buildings. Maybe the same had been in the case in eras before them, but we do not have any document for proving. It should be noted that no instance of this style has been observed in the next periods. The use of animated inscription in objects is more known to the researchers, and some instance of using animated inscription are also observed in the architecture. First, we will introduce animated inscription in the objects, and then we will examine animated inscription in the domain of religious architecture. The earliest use of animated inscription in ceramics could be dated to the 10th century, and in metalworks can be precisely dated to December 1163. Most of these objects are related to Khorasan. Animated inscription in objects often express good wishes or expressing poem about drinking wine. The categories of animated inscription in objects are follow. First, human-headed inscription. Here we have human-headed. That are form of human in various form. 2. Ornithomorphic inscription, that figures of birds from integral parts of the Kufic letters. 3. Zoomorphic inscription. Here the letters are fused with the heads of real and fanciful animals and birds. I will now introduce some typical religious buildings from different time periods, from oldest to newest, and then try to draw some conclusion from the data. Congregational Mosque of Nain is the oldest building which has used an animated inscription similar to abstract portraiture. Here we also have a form of face in La. The construction date of Friday Mosque of Nain goes back to 10th century. Shadiakh is an area in the southeast side of Attar Mausoleum in Neyshabur. It is recognized as a significant place for ruler in Khorasan in the Islamic period, before the Mongol invasion. Up to now, the excavation reports of the place have not been issued yet. This inscription is found in a cruciform room. Excavators have not found the mihrab here yet, and so possibly this is not a prayer room. In my idea, this inscription is the other form of animated inscription. The face, Semnan, is full face, and the shape of inscription is remarkable. In this technique, half of the face is in other letter and the other half in the adjacent letter, so that together they make up a complete face. Possibly there is same animated inscription in the religious architecture, but there is not any document about this yet. There are 8 buildings attributed to Ghurid dynasty which have a specific animated inscription of them, 3 of which I will introduce here. The buildings include religious and non-religious monuments. The construction date of some of these buildings is attributed to the Seljuk period. However, considering the distinctive and unique Ghurid style inscriptions, their construction date should be changed to Ghurid period. Here, we will introduce some of these monuments. Ghurid Madrasa is a reign of a brick structure that is known as Shah Mashhad. This madrasa is located in Garajistan, in northwestern Afghanistan, and in province Badghis. Shah Mashhad is a school built by unnamed lady. The date of a school according to patron inscription is 1165. We can see exaggerated contrast between tall and short, thick and thin letters in this type of Ghurid animated inscription. A Naskhi inscription of Stucco on the north arch containing a religious text that have not read yet. Vakil Bazar is located in the eastern of Turkmenistan. This mausoleum, known as grave of Abdullah ibn Buraida because of this inscription and an historic document. Abdullah ibn Buraida was son of Buraid ibn Husayb, who was well known as Shia. He settled in Marv, where he died during the region of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Mausoleum has inscription consists of Quranic and name of unknown patrons. The inscriptions are not dated, but Ghurid animated inscription can be seen in the photo of this monument. This inscription is a different type comparing to other which were introduced previously about Ghurid buildings in Shah Mashhad, Chisht, and Herat Mausoleum. This type of animated inscription in some cases have 2 faces and are carved. The shape of face is different from previous instances and does not have a line above their eyes. The fame of Bayazid Bastami attracts followers. In about 1215, the last Ghurid prince, Alauddin Muhammad, had built a mausoleum for himself in Bayazid burial in Bastam. The remains of this mausoleum were uncovered, and this stucco fragment shows the Ghurid style. We could recognize Ghurid animated inscription from superficial viewpoint in 2 groups. First group consists of Shah Mashhad Madrasa, Mausoleum of Ghiyaseddin, and Mausoleum of Chisht, and Ghiyaseddin Mausoleum considering construction date of Shah Mashhad Madrasa. The second group consists of Mausoleum of Vakil Bazar, Imam Kalan, and Imam Khord, and Bastam, based on construction date of Alauddin Muhammad tomb in Bastam. The other kinds of animated inscription was happened in the Ilkhanid architecture. There are 3 monuments that have animated inscription include the following. All monuments which I have mentioned them in abstract portraiture part of Bastam consist of Bayazid Mosque and isolated cell or Someh from the Bayazid Shrine complex and Masjid Jame Bastam, in addition to the Ivan in the yard, have the other kind of animated inscription. These animated inscriptions have profile shape and not full face. They only have one eye and nose. They are abstract as animated inscription in Ghurid architecture. However, metal and ceramics works follow a more realistic style. Architect, geometer, or Muhandes Memar Hossein ibn Abi Talib Damghani and his son did all works. In all monuments of Bastam, which were mentioned previously, except in Masjid Jame Bastam, they chose Aleph in unconnected form for using animated inscription. For example, in the La ilaha illallah, here, they could have selected Lam or Aleph in La for animated inscription, but they only utilized Aleph in Ilaha and in Allah for animated inscription. Or in another example, in Sultan al-Arifin, which is the title of Bayazid, use of Aleph in unconnected form can be seen. Even though it could have also been used in attached Aleph or in Ta. The Aleph was absolutely necessary to know in Islamic mysticism. Among the unconnected letters, Aleph is one three letters that is inspired the mysticism. It is particularly the Aleph with the numerical value 1 standing tall and unconnected at the beginning of the definite article as the beginning of the word Allah. As Hallaj said, it is divine letter per excellence. In addition, the Bayazid Shrine complex is the shrine of great Sufi. Therefore, most probably, the decision to just use unconnected Aleph only for animated inscriptions is related to mysticism idea. Khosroshir Mosque, that's attributed to the Ilkhanid era. Khosroshir is a village of Jovain plain in the western Khorasan. Bayhaqi mentioned Khosroshir village in his book in 5th century. At the moment, only certain section of a large Ivan with a height of 11 meters remain and the rest of the mosque is gone. The inscription of Ivan has been destroyed, but they show the animated inscription that was used in Shrine of Bastam. There are Quranic verses that mention jihad and build a mosque in the way of Allah. As you can see, they use the style of Bastam in form of animated inscription. Also, they choose Aleph in unconnected form for using animated inscription. Here. In the Jahedu, the use of unconnected Aleph can be seen. The last monument is Friday Mosque of Faryumad. Animated inscriptions of Faryumad are more clear comparing to Ghurid style and samples of Bastam and Khosroshir. They have eye, nose, and all them except one case are smiling, similar to those in other monuments with abstract portraiture. Ali ibn Abul Hasan ibn Mahmud Shahristani, a stucco carver of Faryumad, use all letters that have shape of Aleph to present animated inscription, like for letters Ta, Za, and Ka, and Aleph, of course. He also used similar combination of letter La above other letters for keeping harmony. Here. In this image, it seems as if the person is extending his hands. In the other one, it is as if the person is looking back at someone else. In all of these instances, except one, images are smiling. In the one with no smile, the person has returned to look at another person whose height is shorter than others, as if it is a child. Maybe it is an indication of a child and parent. Overall, the use of animated inscription of different shapes and designs dates back to 10th century in Friday Mosque of Nain and Shadiakh in Nishabur. This was followed in religious and non-religious architecture of Ghurid period, as well as religious the Ilkhanid buildings. In metalworks and ceramics, in contrast to architecture, the abstract shape were used less frequently. Also, there seems to be no effort in selection of specific letters in metalworks and ceramics. However, in some instances from Ilkhanid period, the unconnected aleph, which has numerous references in Islamic mysticism, has been used. In this regard, one may state that animated inscription was, at least in the Ilkhanid period, related to mystical concepts. In summation of this discussion, one may state that there are certain similarities in these two figural representations. Both of them emerged at 10th century in Nishabur and Nain, and they are used in Khorasan and Rumes until the end of the Ilkhanid period. Also, based on above finding and discussions, the abstract portraiture and animated inscription at the Ilkhanid period were influenced by Sufist tradition. In addition, based on my definition of face, there are numerous animated inscription and abstract portraitures in the studied buildings. Concerning animated inscription, there is a delicate ambiguity in representing them. If you want to see them, they are there. But if you chose not to see them, you can ignore them and still find other harmonies in the representation. This is also the case for abstract portraitures. So for today's talk, I chose the representations of abstract portraitures which are more clear to be detected as a face. In fact, ambiguity was a common characteristic of abstract portraitures and animated inscriptions. They are not trying to present a specific animal or bird. They are not trying to present gender or a specific person. They are trying to evoke the idea of the God creator. They are trying to show God created people, He created birds and animals. The selection of a specific verse of Quran in the Ivan of Friday Mosque of Faryumad, which directly points to creation of birds, support this statement. One may state that considering the use of abstract portraiture and animated inscription in a number of buildings and their similarities in the most of these areas, it is possible for this idea to be extended to animated inscription as well. Therefore, it seems that not only animated inscription and abstract portraiture do not ignore the interpretation of Quranic statement which said God is the only creator, but also they insist this idea. Thank you.